Morning,
What's
morning.
happening, everybody? Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Adobe live stream. We've got something a little bit different, I think, this week. So Flynn's just going to be in chat. He's not going to be hosting, and we're just going to do a dual session with myself and the amazing and always legendary Dale Bigeni. How you going, man?
I'm very good, Jeremy. How are you? How's everything? How's life?
Um, Pretty good, pretty good. Just cruising along, getting some illustration work done. Yeah, just chugging along.
Nice, nice.
How about yourself?
Yeah, busy as ever, which is good. Plenty of work
Yep.
going on, considering the current state of the world. Still a little bit in shambles, but staying optimistic, pretty positive, and yeah, good to be back on the stream, I guess.
Yeah,
Ready
always.
to
Um,
draw.
so I guess today is just going to be that, right? It's just going to be the two of us drawing. We'll take some questions from you guys as always. We've got a little bit of a special stream system happening today, so your questions will go through chat, and then Flynn will pass them on to us, so we've got to read them. So it might be a little bit kind of clunky at first, but yeah, we're basically just going to be doing some drawings each on our side, and then we'll talk about kind of the industry and all that kind of stuff. And then we'll address any questions as they come up. So let's get stuck in, I guess.
Sounds excellent.
Yeah, cool.
All
I'm going
right.
to be using Photoshop today. That's just because that's what I kind of tend to use all the time. I assume you will be using Illustrator?
For today, I think I'll be in Photoshop right with you, which is kind of where I start for
Yeah.
most of my concepts at the moment, and then I think I'll jump into Illustrator kind of tomorrow to just talk about some vector stuff. But it's going to be interesting to just see how similar this process is anyway to prove that Illustrator or Photoshop is very very much the same.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Although, I mean, saying that, obviously, the fact that you're using Photoshop now means I've won, right? Like, I've converted you to Photoshop.
Uh, I mean, if that helps you sleep at night, Jeremy, okay, then
It
yes, you
does.
did. You won. It means Photoshop still reigns supreme. Okay.
It's a thing. It's totally a thing. Photoshop is a verb.
Look, I can't fault it, to be honest. I'm getting more and more opportunities to use Photoshop in full and send things through to production in Photoshop. Like I've said it in a few streams that people have started caring less and less about it being a vector, and you can literally
Mm.
send over a PNG file and people are pumping this stuff out. So I think it's time for change, right? And if that means coming to the dark side of Photoshop, then I'm all for it.
The dark side. Yes, join me in the dark side, my young Padawan. Yeah, that's true. It's interesting, actually, because it's those like industry shifts that are super interesting to kind of look at with things that have been a certain way forever, and like have,
Yeah,
as we've been kind of like teaching these things for a long time, and talking about how like you have to do this and you can't do that, and like even with print, like now I because all my colors tend to be like super neon and bright,
yeah,
I kind of have to work in RGB. So just two kind of standard ones are RGB and CMYK for those of you guys who don't necessarily know too much about this stuff, but it used to be that standard of like if you're doing print, you have to do CMYK, right? And
okay,
that kind of like
yeah,
reduces the range of colors and the brightness of colors that you can go for, especially if you've got like neons and stuff. It kind of kills that a little bit. But now, like most printers are able to print with RGB printers as well,
yeah,
and
yeah,
that's just meant that like like you can just do so much more with your artwork now, and printers can just get it done,
yeah.
which is really awesome.
I think it's good for people to know that also, because I do still get a lot of clients that are like, "Hey man, I need it to be CMYK Illustrator vector
Yeah,
file only," and
yeah,
I kind of I don't mind educating um, them on the fly. Like I'm learning all the time also, but there's definitely a misconception about what printers need. I mean, you should always ask the printer what they prefer to use, but I definitely find that more and more printers are allowing like PSD files. Some are doing like JPEG files. I guess it depends on the design as well.
Yeah, totally. It does, and the application of that as well, isn't it? Like it depends on how you're going to print it, what you're going to do with it, like where it's going to go, all these different kind of ideas. Which is one of the things, like, I don't know about you, but it's one of the things that I have to like spend a bit of time with my client at first, trying to understand, like, you know, what are you going to do with this file? Like, how are you going to use it? Is it going to be animated? Are you going to give it to another designer to use like this? Because that has a huge impact on how I actually, like, what I actually started. And often it even has a huge impact on whether or not I can actually do the thing. Like, if you need it to be all vector, like, I know how to use Illustrator, but I'm not like particularly good at it, which is probably one of the reasons I tend to stick to Photoshop. But there have been times when clients have gone like, no, we need it to be a vector. Absolutely, we need it to be vector. And I've just gone like, maybe I'm not your guy.
Yeah, sometimes you do.
In which case, I just refer them to you, you know?
Yeah, hey, I don't mind. The system works, right? And you got to give it to the right person for the job. And I guess there is like a preferred medium for everybody. And look, I enjoy Photoshop, I think, just purely because it's kind of, it's a lot easier to get your head around. The Illustrator thing, there is a lot you need to consider, I guess, for a lot of parts of it. But yeah, look, whatever gets the job done and whoever's the right person for the job. But right now I'm doing it in Photoshop, and I will take this to Illustrator. So I'm designing conscious for, like you just said, you got to be conscious about where these things end up. I'm conscious of taking this into Illustrator and finishing it, so I don't want to put too much detail.
Yeah. That's another thing, actually. Like, something I kind of struggle with sometimes is, like, I don't know if it's me, but I tend to sometimes get kind of a little bit bored of it. Like, well, maybe not bored is the right word, but like I tend to get impatient with the sketch phase and not pay my dues to the sketch. And then I was like, I just want to ink this up. I just want to see how this looks like right now. And I don't want to wait any longer. And so I'll leave stuff like this, for instance. Like, so this, like, I'm looking at this, I'm just going to do this kind of like Princess Mononoke sketch, which I've kind of done before, but just showing you guys kind of how the process kind of happens. But there'll be times when like stuff like this is real loose, right? Like these just kind of like tiger claws, kind of necklace kind of thing happening here. The hand here is super loose. I tend to kind of jump too fast into the inking phase, and not pay attention to, you know, like finishing this hand off and actually like drawing the rest of the fingers in properly and getting the thumb in. Like, these are just indications of it at this stage, and that's okay. But yeah, sometimes I will do the wrong thing and kind of skip a beat and just go straight into that. And then I'm in the inking phase and I'm just like, oh man, come on, man. Like, you know, damn you past me. Why didn't you do more work on this? Now, like, future me has to do all this like inking work, and trying to get details in or like sort out the pose in inking is really tricky, I find. Like, it's just, that's what sketching is for. And then I'll just go back and do another layer and fix that all up.
Yeah. But I think
do you find that you do the same kind of thing?
Yeah, but I was going to say, I think it's kind of, it's a little bit of your confidence level as well. Obviously, that's not the first time you've drawn that, like, that subject matter, or like for you know, for what it's worth, it's not your first drawing. I do the same thing. Like, I know that this little sketch that I've got it, like, yeah, of course, there's like the rough lines. It's been tidied up, and, you know, I too, like you, I get real anxious because I know how good it looks when you start finessing all the lines and stuff like that. And I think your confidence kind of takes over, and you're like, yeah, that's close enough. I'll fix it up when I get to inking, or, you know, when it's finished, I can tidy that up. But I definitely agree that you should probably be I guess it's good practice, right? To spend a little bit more time on that sketch and it kind of like, really hone in on those details.
Yeah, yeah, for
But
sure. And it just helps
but sometimes it's
helps you
time,
later on,
right?
doesn't it? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
A lot of this stuff that we do, it's always I guess time sensitive.
Mm.
Well, this one definitely is. How we've only got what is it, like just under an hour to try to get through as much as we can here, but I'm just gonna be. I'm definitely only doing my outlining stuff here, and I don't know.
Yeah,
It's kind of like I still think it's really nice to draw in Photoshop. It still always feels what's the word, like heaps more natural. Like I'll give it that. I feel like it's the closest thing to drawing like traditionally, I guess, where Illustrator is super refined and super sharp, and like I know there's ways to kind of like there's the blob tool and there's you can work on your brushes and stuff, but yeah, there's still something pretty special about working in Photoshop. So it still gets my vote.
yeah. I think that's the thing, isn't it? Like, Illustrator is an amazing program for doing a whole range of different things. But at the end of the day, like I always tend to think it's just kind of like it's not really it doesn't feel like a drawing program. It's an image creation program, and it's super powerful at that. But if you want like something that relates more to the drawing experience that you would get like pencil and paper, I still think like Photoshop is king for that.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and I just think like there's a lot of tools in Photoshop that just like are great for time saving as well, and the amount of brushes available for Photoshop and versus Illustrator, like there's quite a big difference.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you buy a lot of brushes, Jeremy?
I don't. Well, especially now that you get, as part of your Creative Cloud license, you get all those free brushes from Carl T. Webster, which like a lot of them are really awesome. But I've literally just got like, if you look at my brushes panel here, I've got a bunch that I've downloaded. So these are just the stock standard ones that are in Photoshop as you kind of, when you download it. But then I've got these ones, dry media brushes, manga brushes. That's a Carl T. Webster brush. And there's a whole bunch in there that are really cool, like some half tones and stuff that are really nice. But literally these are the three brushes actually, because that one is one that I created myself. But I use Carl's Manga Smoothie, Carl's dry media brush, and these are my pencil brushes, and that's my inking brush. So right now I'm using this one to do like pencil, and then later on I'll come in with a nice black outline with my Carl's Manga Smoothie and ink it up. So that's not kind of my usual process on this, but no, I don't necessarily like make very many brushes, and I definitely don't purchase very many brushes. Every now and then I will like make a brush for something really specific, like because I tend to draw a lot of like Japanese things, and I'm using the wrong brush again. A lot of detail tends to happen. So like, for instance, sometimes I will make a brush for like the little diamonds that go on like a katana handle, like this, for instance. So I'll actually make a brush that looks like this, and then I can just do a big long stroke like that, and then it just draws each one at the same size. It depends on what I'm doing, right? Like it depends on how many of these I need to do. Like that can be a bit of a time saver, but generally speaking, I'm much more of a just kind of like, if you can't do it with your basic brush or basic pencil, then maybe downloading fancy brushes is not going to really help you too much.
Yeah.
But they're definitely great for things like grass or hair, or like things to just like make it a little bit easier for you. But yeah, how about do you? I've seen you create a bunch of brushes in Illustrator before for like inking and stuff.
I used to. I haven't done it in quite a while. I think I've just focused so much on using the blob tool and just using the pressure sensitivity to kind of achieve
Yep.
that, like I said, that Photoshop kind of natural lines, I guess. But there are times
Hmm.
where I will build brushes like tapered ends and or rounded ends just to kind of help the process a little bit. But
Yep.
like I said, I've done so much lately where it's kind of come from Photoshop, and then I'm just like finessing it in Illustrator, I guess. I
Hmm.
think that's probably just mostly comes down to habit, though. I think I'm so used to finishing my art in Illustrator and having a vector format that I feel like I need to take it into Illustrator. I think I could again. I think I could just purely use Photoshop, but I mean, you already own that title. That's your thing. I got to do something different. It's we can't. We got to mix it up
There's no
somehow.
title. I think
Nah,
it's a big enough
look,
crown that more people can share it, I reckon. And I'm definitely
look. I
not
feel like
like,
sorry. I feel like there is a lot of there are quite a lot of people on using Photoshop. Like definitely more people I see using Photoshop than Illustrator lately. But I do follow some guys, and they're purely Illustrator from sketch to
mm,
completion, and it's like it's incredible the way they sketch. I guess I haven't really given myself enough time to wrap my head around what would be the best way to sketch. I guess you could just do it the same way
in
as
Illustrator.
Photoshop, and yeah, like just with the blob tool, just like sketch roughly. I guess it would be exactly the same.
Yep. Yeah,
Could
that's a
be.
weird one. Like,
Like,
how would you sketch in Illustrator? Like, yeah, that is a weird one. I'd be interested in seeing like somebody do a tutorial or something on that. Um,
yeah, there's a guy in the States. His name's Matthew Skiff, and he does these incredible like female like I guess it like pin-up esque kind of vibe to him, and he does
yeah,
like he does like kind of Instagram live videos where um he'll show kind of his process from start to finish, and even just the way he uses the pen tool in Illustrator, like it's still really rough, but he makes it like look incredible. Like it kind of makes me want to learn more about it and kind of live a little bit more in Illustrator, but you find your way, and I'm an old dog set in my ways. This is just how I do it now. This is what I'm going to do.
mm. Yeah. I think it's also like it's also interesting to kind of look at that thing of like when when does something that you've been doing for a long time become something that's maybe like you've done a bit too much, or you want to switch up something like for
Yeah,
instance something like this. I might like normally my thing would be like now that the sketch is kind of more or less done, even though I've kind of said what I said I shouldn't do. But normally, what I would do, and like those of you guys who have kind of joined in the streams before would have seen me do this kind of stuff before, where it's like, you know, very smooth, clean lines happening in something like this. But every now and then, I'm like, oh man, can I like, what if I try something new? Like, is that all right? Like, can I do that? But I think as well, what's interesting is, you know, like it's very much like an actor, like, you know, like a Jim Carrey all of a sudden gets his first like dramatic role in something like, you know, going from like The Mask or whatever to
yeah,
Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, and it's like, can you do that? Are you allowed? But you're a comedian, like you make funny jokes. Is
it's
it
funny.
okay
Yeah,
for you to
yeah,
be in a serious movie? And it's like, it's funny. It's like there is like a legit question of like people know me or expect me to do this kind of thing. Is it going to throw them if I do something different? Like, so yeah, so this might be what I would do now, but every now and then I feel like maybe I want to go like a little bit more crazy with this stuff and be a little bit more rough,
yeah,
and then just kind of really like have this be a little bit more natural and a bit more sketchy, and
yeah,
use like I almost never use black, like as in like as a color in my work. It's
yeah,
usually just line work, and I don't use a lot of shading like that comic book style where there's like, you know, cell shading.
yeah,
But sometimes I'm like, hey man, well, why wouldn't I try that? And have a go at doing something a little bit more kind of interesting or very different, like a little bit more natural,
Just
like
shake
inking,
it up
like
a
on
little
this
bit,
fur,
right?
for instance. Totally. And it's not really my usual style, but is that a bad thing? Like,
Yeah, I don't think so. Like, I think it's nice to shake it up. It's really, I think it's great to own a style, but I think it doesn't matter if you were to draw something different in a little bit of a different style. People can still see it's a Jeremy Lord or a Art by Dale piece. I think they can pick up on like subtle cues in it that really make it yours.
hmm,
So I definitely think shaking it up is good for. I think as an artist, good for your health anyway.
yeah, totally.
And I see there's a question that says, How did you guys meet?" Jeremy, I can't even remember the first time. It's like this is a love story gone wrong. I can't remember
um,
where it first. I'm gonna assume that it was through like an art show of some sort.
Possibly, yeah, probably would have been something like that, I reckon. Could have been through Instagram as well. Like that's one of the things um, that I think is like, as much as Instagram can kind of carry some bad things with it. Um, I think the really cool thing, if you just reach out to an artist or
Yeah,
somebody that you kind of follow on Instagram, chances are that they'll probably hit you back up
yeah,
and kind of start a conversation that way. So I think maybe I might have reached out to you and gone
yeah.
like, hey, what's happening? I can't remember, but I I would
Look, I think
imagine it would have been through Instagram.
yeah, I think that I know that Jeremy and I share a lot of mutual friends, so it could have just been like across the ways on Instagram, but it doesn't matter how because now we're here, we're good friends, we like to draw, and we're blessed to be able to do this together. I guess right now, like
Yeah.
the system works. The system works.
It does, and it's
Just
interesting actually because it is like it can be easy to like find yourself as an illustrator because it's a freelance only profession, right? Like, for at least for the
sure.
most part. um, and so it can be easy to like feel like you're kind of in your own little corner doing your own thing. But I think
Absolutely.
definitely like once I started kind of like reaching out to other illustrators and asking questions, you kind of really discover this thing of like, oh, you get this too, right? Okay, it's not just me. Like, either talking about like
Yeah.
how do you manage clients or how do you manage your job, or do you find this difficult, or like how do you use this program or whatever, or like tips and tricks on that kind of stuff. I think that
Yeah.
can be incredibly helpful when when you've been doing stuff on your own for a while, to have a chat to someone else who's been doing kind of similar things and just like realize that, yeah,
You're
you're
not
not alone,
alone.
I guess.
I agree. I'm having that exact dilemma. Like, I guess especially from last year to now, it's been really like isolating, like more than ever. So I have been like reaching out to heaps of artists and kind of just checking in and making sure everyone else is all good. Because if one
Mm,
feels like that, there's a good chance we're all going down together.
100%. Yeah,
But yeah, it's
and it
nice.
is
It's
and it's good to like have that network as well. Like, because we throw
yeah,
each other jobs every now and then. Like, if I'm not
yeah,
available to take on a job, or if I can't do it because, like I said, it's an illustrator or anything like that, like it's always good to have, like, oh well, like you're not telling a client no in that sense. It's like, well, I
yeah,
can't do it, but I can totally recommend you to the person who can. And I find clients are
yeah.
always like super helpful, super thankful
Well,
for that kind of stuff.
yeah, absolutely. And I think people need to put their egos aside sometimes and realize that helping each other actually helps themselves a little bit.
Yeah.
I know it makes you look good as an artist to to be able to offer someone else a job that is not right for you. Like, you don't just take it on because it's money in the bank.
Yeah.
What is it?
Totally.
Like, stay humble.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think there's like, you gain nothing from like being a bit of like having a bit of an attitude. I think like,
yeah,
like it's good to like let that go a little bit. And even just like, even on a topic like how much do you charge or something like that, a lot of people can get a little bit like uncomfortable with talking about how much they charge, and they feel like like, oh well, that's my thing, like you should figure out your thing. And like, well, I think that's true, like obviously not everybody's going to be charging the same depending on their level of experience or skill or anything else.
Exactly.
But the more information is out there for people starting out on like how much what we do can be worth or is worth, that we all win, right? Like with the more we're all kind of working to the same tune, we all benefit from that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And also, it's just one of those things. Like, it doesn't matter how much I charge or how much the guy down the road can do it for you. That's up to you who you want to do the work. And like you said, there's a lot of experience and knowledge that comes with experience. So if you think that person that you're talking to who's doing it for hundreds of dollars cheaper is a better option, then no one's going to hold it against you. Go for it. But people have to charge what they're worth, and I think self-worth is like very important to remember. Yeah,
and it's also like like not undercutting your mates and your colleagues. You undercut, then like, sure, cool, you got the job, but next time you're going to be like expected to charge the same kind of rate, and so
exactly
you lose just as much as everybody else.
Yeah, you shoot yourself in the foot, right?
Yeah.
All right, Jeremy, we've got another question, and the question is, what is the illustration community like in Oz, in Australia? Oh.
I want to say generally, like, really super good. Like, that's my experience in a general way. I want to say, like, there's good people around. They're happy to help. They're happy to have a chat. Like, I reached out to a bunch of people that I've never met before and literally just gone like, hey man, how you going? Love your work. Love to kind of ask you some questions. Maybe we can catch up for a drink sometime. And it's the answer is almost always like, yeah, awesome. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Let's have a chat. Sometimes it's like, oh yeah, I've seen your work too. I've been following you for a while. But yeah, generally speaking, I find that in my experience, that's the case of like most of the people you reach out to are just like, they're just doing their thing like you, or trying to do their thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's like any kind of I guess scene or kind of little there's always going to be like these little cliques where like there are there's a bunch of guys that like they all hang together and they all draw together, and like you said, they give each other work, they feed off each other, but that's just I guess that's indicative of the community being close, I guess. Like, even though they're a clique and they've got their own little circle, like they're really close, but no one shuts each other out. I think Australia's pretty welcoming just all round as a country, so I've never had any drama. I've never really thought that it's a hard place to be a part of. Like a hard community to be a part of. But I've also been. We've probably been in it a lot longer than a lot of people. So it's, I don't know. I've seen like the scene was big before Instagram was big, right? Like, and now it's like everyone thinks that if you're not kind of Instagram mates or you're not hanging out and at the same parties, you're not cool. It's definitely not the case. I think if you invite yourself to one of those parties, you'd be welcomed with open arms.
Yeah, totally. I think, and just Yeah, well, like most, like I said, most of us are just like we're just people doing the same thing.
Yeah, yeah,
And I've had this thing before. Like I remember talking to a few different artists that I looked up to, and then kind of have these conversations, and then they're asking me questions that I would have asked them, and then there's that kind
yeah,
of weird moment where it's like, well, hang on, but you're not asking me that question. I'm asking you that question. Like, you know
yeah,
this. Of course
yeah,
you know this. Like, that's that moment when you realize, like, okay, cool. Yeah, like I said, like it looks like you got it all figured out, but maybe you don't, and maybe you're just like me, and maybe you're asking yourself just
yeah,
as many questions as I am asking myself, and that I think
yeah,
can feel nice to kind of realize, especially when you're starting out.
yeah. And I think it's kind of, it puts your mind at ease when, I mean, I was at the pub a few months ago, or going back a fair bit, and I ran into an old friend, and like he's fairly, he's fairly up in the game, and like we were talking, and I was like, oh, like how's it all been? He's like, oh man, I'm like really stressed out, and blah, blah. And I was like, oh wait, I thought I was stressed out. I thought I was the one struggling and stuff. But I think talking and realizing like that the community like suffers all the same. Like you're not alone. Again, what you're talking about, we're not alone.
Mm.
I think being a tight community, people are quite open to tell you how they're feeling and like how's business going, how's work going, how's the families, things like that. So yeah, it's a good community. I'm proud to be a part of it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Same here. Yeah, we get to
All right,
do
well, I'm like,
some pretty fun jobs.
I think I'm done with my little guy's outline here. I going back to brushes and preferred brushes. I'm a one brush master in Photoshop. I'm the hard round pressure size for life.
Yep.
I'm just like,
Yep.
I just don't. I've got like on my brushes panel here. I've got like a heap of different stuff here, but like you, most of the standard, and then I've got a bunch of the true grit stuff just for. And I feel like every second client wants vintage or retro or worn out design. So, you know, got to have those in there, please the masses. But I've drawn this little guy all with the hard round pressure size, and that's been drawn with one brush size. It has been size 20 for the whole job, and it's just using that pressure sensitivity of the tablet, I guess, to do the legwork for me.
Yep. Yeah, that's the thing. I think
My,
we're both using Wacom's now, aren't we? Like, that's one of those kind of
correct,
standard
yes.
things where you get that like pressure sensitivity, which is the same thing. Like you see, mine's just been at 100 the whole time, but I get these like varying lines and varying kind of stroke thicknesses in there, which gives it that
Yeah,
bit more of a natural feel. Which again is not
yeah,
something that I
definitely.
normally do. Like I said, like a lot of my artwork tends to be a little bit more like cleaner, smoother, uniform than this. But every now and then it can be
Yeah,
super fun just to cut loose and do something like this. And I'm actually really enjoying this. Actually, it's making me think like I should do this more often.
this is it. Shake it up.
We got another
All right.
question, I think, in the chat from Roger.
Yep.
Says, "Hey bro,
Yep.
what's your feeling? Somebody calling your work for a big corporation or a big corporate
Oh,
company selling out."
what was the word? What's your feelings?
So,
My
like,
feelings
what's
are
your? How do you feel about like, yeah, people calling you or like calling you a sellout because you're working for a big corporation, or are you doing a brief for a big
I'll
corporation?
I can answer that because I don't feel anything when someone wants to call me a sellout, because clearly that said person, whoever wants to say it, has nothing better to do, for one. And I don't call it selling out. I call it like expanding a portfolio. And believe it or not, people still look at a portfolio.
Mm.
So when people say you're selling out, I don't think you're selling out at all. I think you're making smart career moves and being recognized by big business, which is like the highest achievement, right? Like, do you just want to do logos for your friends for the next 20 years, or do you want to like excel and see your work on the big screen like I do? I know that I love when I've done work for Facebook, for Xbox. I've done it for Nike,
Yep.
Harley Davidson, and whenever I see it, it's like it's a proud moment for my whole family. Like my grandparents look at it and they're proud. Like I don't think it's selling out at all. I think it's a huge achievement. So I'm not phased. I think it's a little bit of jealousy, and that's just everywhere we go. People want to comment, but I feel good. It means it's hitting all the right people.
Yep. No, I would agree with that too. I think there are a few companies who will remain nameless that I probably wouldn't work for simply from like a moral or ethical point of view. But beyond that, I think like if it's just a big corporation, like it's a job at the end of the day. Even from just a purely kind of materialistic, like I agree with everything you said, and I feel the same way.
Yeah.
But if you want to look at it just from a purely kind of material standpoint, like your job is an illustrator. You work for clients and you do illustration for clients. Like if you're going to turn down these companies because they don't necessarily fit a certain thing, then I guess maybe what's the point? I don't know. Maybe that's not the right word, but
yeah, I think people, again, it goes back to a little bit of ego. Like you can be, I guess, like doing it for a corporate company doesn't make it any less cool, because that company's come to you because they want to make their campaign or their that particular project have a little bit of cool and flair. So it's a huge compliment as far as I'm concerned. When a company that you think is corporate or not going to fit your style or your brand, like you need to think of it as a compliment, because they want to bring your edge or your flair to their kind of what's corporate or what's boring. I kind of enjoy them jobs the most, because I can walk in there and have my work displayed and not even fit their brand at all, and it's like I'm the one thing that stands out. So yeah, huge compliment. It's a good question.
Yeah, it is a good question, and it's one that you do get every now and then, and sometimes you do get that feeling. So it's a good one to kind of address and talk about in that sense. But work is work at the same time.
Yeah, definitely.
I think more to that kind of on a similar topic, more to the point is like the main reason I would turn down jobs these days is because they don't fit with my style. Not have anything to do with the client necessarily, but like I've had jobs that have come to me maybe for the wrong reasons. Either I can't do them or I don't necessarily want to do them, and then I turn them down because they're not necessarily advancing my thing. I'm the wrong person for it.
Right.
And I think that's something. Obviously, that's a luxury to be able to like turn down jobs simply because you don't necessarily want to do them. But it is one of the things I think it's something to think about going forward, is this idea that how does this job fit in my portfolio? How does this job kind of do? Am I going to enjoy it as well? But is it something that's going to advance me getting more work like that? Because the more work you do in a certain style, the more work you're going to get in that style. So you need to kind of reassess every now and then and gauge whether or not, like, am I enjoying doing this? Is it something that I want to do more of? Or like, do I need to kind of do that shift? A lot of artists like routinely go through that kind of shift as well, of like, well, I used to be this kind of thing and now I'm doing this kind of thing. And that's totally fine. Like, you reinvent yourself every now and then.
Yeah, that's me. That's me right now. I feel like if I had to do an overview or a recollect of my career from start to now, it's changed heaps. But I mean, there's always been work, and there's always like new work and new business coming in. So something's working, and I don't for 1 second regret making career moves or like changing style to suit a project at all. it's quite the opposite. I'm excited that people embrace when I make a change or I'm presenting new ideas and stuff. So yeah, it's ever growing and ever learning process, right?
Yeah, totally. And I think don't be
So,
afraid to like, reinvent yourself a little bit too. I think that can always be super fun to do.
No, I definitely agree. So I'm just going to rough in some colors for me for my reference on my picture. But I know we've only got like 12
10 minutes.
Left. Yep. Yeah. So I'm just going to rough all these colors in, and then tomorrow I'm going to come into Illustrator and I'm going to do all my finishing for this piece.
Yep. I think I'm at the stage where I'm trying to do this like forest spirit from the Princess Mononoke anime, and I'm not quite getting the right shape. And I think this is one of those things where it's like, maybe I need to look at some reference of that. Maybe I need to jump online and like Google it and see kind of what it's like and what's happening. Because I think that's another thing as well, of like, don't be afraid to admit you don't know how to draw a thing. And I think it's like, for me as well, even like beyond that, is like when my brain says like, oh, I know how to draw this, I think that's usually when alarm bells go off of like, whoa, careful, like maybe that's probably me being arrogant and being like, I totally got this, and you don't, and you think you do, but the idea that you have is the wrong idea. Like the version of that in your brain is wrong, and it's not that at all. And that's usually when it's just like, okay, cool, time to go and look at some reference.
I do it all the time. I'm a sucker for a good reference, and I don't for 1 second try to play that down at all. I think it's important that people they understand, like, we didn't get this confident, just overnight, and it just happened. It was a lot of learning, and like it's forever learning. And the only reason I can draw skulls the way I do now is because I just kept drawing, kept looking at references, tracing them over and over again until I felt confident. And now it's like, I can do your skull. That's fine. It's easy. But I still reference a lot of things. Like this one had a little bit of reference for my piece. Like I was still looking at like character like poses and like strong poses and like little elements on these characters that make them mascot-ish, I guess. Like I wanted it to be bold. I wanted it to be like, be a confident little character. So I'd still look into like character poses, cartoon drawings, watching cartoons, things like that. But reference is good.
Yeah, super important, I think, to do that, at least for myself. Like things like hands, like you guys saw, like I didn't really necessarily use like too much reference to do this hand. It's a bit janky actually, now that I'm looking at it. It's a bit like, it's not quite how I'd want it. And so often what I'll do is I'll just actually like photograph my own hand doing the pose that I want and use that as reference. And then, like if I'm being 100% honest, sometimes it still doesn't quite work and I still don't quite get it. And then I'll just trace the image, don't tell anybody. Sometimes that happens, but like it's always handy with things like, especially like hands. Hands are like all artists' kryptonite, or maybe not for you, but definitely for me, it's just like that's one of the hardest things to draw, and that's one of the things that I probably use reference on the most.
My dad used to tell me, he's like, if you can't draw it, just hide them. Always like do poses where you can't see them and just hide them. Totally. It works most of the time.
But it's that thing as well, isn't it? It's like a lot of my drawings, like feet are the same thing. A lot of my drawings when I was a kid, like they would just cut off at the foot, or like at the knee, because it's like, I don't know how to draw the foot, so I'm just going to cut it off.
Just hide it.
Yeah.
Like this little guy he looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with him.
It's good. It's good to be like, that's another thing as well. I think it's like important to remember. It's like Gotta enjoy what you're doing. Hey, like,
Yeah, absolutely.
if you don't, you spend a lot of time doing this. If you don't enjoy it, you're not. I guess you're not going to enjoy it, is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, it's really important to do stuff that you like, that you dig doing, and that you enjoy doing in a style that you like. Because you spend a lot of time doing this kind of stuff.
Alright, we've got 8 minutes left.
Cool. I'm
we'll
just starting to rough in some color. Yeah. Yeah, I think we're both going to be doing a little bit of color tomorrow, having a look at how that all kind of plays in, adding some more detail. I've got a few kind of special effects that I need to knock into here as well, because this big glowy forest spirit monster dude, that's always fun. It's interesting actually as well, as like we were talking about before, with, you know, style and kind of doing the same thing and all that kind of stuff. Like, this is obviously like not my usual like geishas or cyberpunk kind of stuff, but there's still that kind of neon vibe, and there's still the kind of Japanese themes, because it is anime, and it is manga. So there's still kind of that is still kind of hitting that. Yeah, still hitting that craving for me a little bit, even though it is quite different to what I would normally do, and definitely in a different style. But I think as well, it's important to remember, like, your style is not like, oh, you use vector, or you're always drawing in like pink and blue, or you're like, that's not your style. That's just a medium that you do it in.
Right.
Your style is kind of like the themes that you look at and all that kind of stuff. Like, a Dale Bigeni skull is a Dale Bigeni skull, whether it's in oil paints or vector or any other thing, or in pencil. Right. It's still just going to be your thing. So I think that's another thing to kind of remember, is like, don't be defined by your medium necessarily.
Yeah.
Because then as soon as you change mediums, you're like, who am I?
No, I definitely agree. And I think it's important to just do what you love, really. Like, I know it's cheesy, but like, just do what you love, and like, people will recognize it as your art always. All right. I reckon that's my guy for today. He's gonna live like this until the morning.
Yep.
And because we are back, same. Is it tomorrow?
Yep. Tomorrow, same time.
Yep, tomorrow. Same bat channel.
Double whammy. Yep.
I'm excited. Oh yeah. Maybe.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yours look good, man. I love it. Little like demon.
You like that?
I could do. Yeah, that's awesome, dude.
He's here to raise hell. I'm definitely gonna change the colors, but I feel like if I can rough them in on Photoshop, it just helps tomorrow when I. So it's actually Thursday, guys. Sorry, Thursday.
Oh yeah, right. Sorry.
So we've been told by the voices above. Like, yep. Okay. Yep. Thank you.
Thursday, same time. Okay. Cool. All right. Yeah. Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Thanks for the questions.
Yeah. Thanks.
And we'll see you guys hopefully on Thursday at the same time. As always, Dale, awesome to hang with you and talk about drawing, talk about illustration, and looking forward to doing it again on Thursday.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Jeremy. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you guys on Thursday.
Take care.
Awesome. Thank you.